The AMX10M, a unique French tank destroyer, was developed from the AMX10B infantry fighting vehicle. The AMX10M was part of the ARCA project that started in the 1960s, which aimed to create a vehicle capable of firing supersonic ATGMs from 142mm smoothbore gun. The AMX10M retained the same engine, chassis, and 20mm autocannon as the AMX10P, but had a modified chassis that housed an ARCA launcher and its missiles. The ARCA missiles had a range of about 4 km and could penetrate up to 700mm of armor. Ultimately, due to the large associated expenses, especially with the ATGMs, funding for the program was terminated at the last stage of the testing. Additionally, advances in fire control systems for contemporary armor-piercing projects and the ARC missiles' lack of ability to be deployed on helicopters, as well as the increasing prevalence of the hot ATGM system, also contributed to the project's cancellation. Every nation in War Thunder has that one vehicle that is just notoriously bad. And for France, this is the one. It has a 20mm autocannon, which is good for AA, and it has a 142mm rocket launcher. And while it does look really good on the stat card, it does very little damage. And all the other stats of the vehicle are horrible. It's slow, it has no armor, and no gun depression. This is the reason this vehicle is optional to research. The AMX-50 heavy tank was quite powerful, but Defo wanted to procure a heavier 120mm self-propelled gun. However, problems soon started to appear. The weight was the main factor that hampered the development of the vehicle since the speed was deemed too low. In the end, the Canon Eau de Meteor AMX-50 Foch was developed, named after Marshal Ferdinand Foch. Doctrinally, the AMX-50 Foch was supposed to provide long-range support to the regular AMX-50 tanks. There was plans to upgrade the vehicle with a 155mm cannon, but the project was never seriously pursued. Now this is a really good tank. At 7.3, it has a 120mm solid shot slinger that can pierce anything in its BR. It also has a 15mm autocannon for anti-light tank use, and it has a 180mm front plate that's angled, bringing its effective armor to over 300mm. Now that's strong. And it's really fast too, so this is just a perfect tank to use. The AML-90 was developed by the French company Pt1 in the late 1950s as a response to the commission of the French Ministry of Defense. It was based on the earlier AML-60, which mounted a 60mm mortar as its main weapon. The AML-90 replaced the mortar with a DEFA low-pressure 90mm rifle gun capable of firing high-explosive and high-explosive anti-tank shells. As the developer of the AML-90, France used it extensively, using it for police work, counterinsurgency, and reconnaissance, among other tasks. America has the XM800, the British have the Foch, and the French have the AML-90. The only difference between these rat tanks is that the AML can actually penetrate enemy tanks with its 90mm heat rounds, unlike the other two. In the late 1940s, French engineers initiated the development of the Lorrain 40T, a lighter tank project intended to complement the AMX-50 heavy tank. Mounted on the chassis of the Canon d'Assaut Lorraine, the tank features an oscillating turret and utilized advanced technologies from previous experimental projects like the CA Lorraine and the AMX-50 prototype, including the revolver autoloader. Despite its maximum 45mm armor thickness, the Lorrain 40T compensated with cleverly angled armor and a distinctive chevron-shaped front hull design that effectively provided the equivalent protection of 90mm of armor. The strategic use of the lighter armor facilitated increased speed and maneuverability, paired with steel roller wheels and bulletproof tires powered by an 850 horsepower German Maybach engine, enabling the tank to reach speeds of 60 km per hour. Although 2 prototypes were completed in 1952, the Lorraine 40T never entered production due to geopolitical shifts linked with the formation of NATO. Now we're starting to get to the sweet spot of French tanks. The Lorraine 40T is one of my favorites. In my opinion, it should be 7.3, but nevertheless, it has a very fast chassis, meaning it can outrun even enemy light tanks, and it gets a 100mm gun. Yes, it fires solid shot, but at least that means it can penetrate IS-3s frontally. But it does have less armor, which could mean a problem. The AMX50 project started life as the 30-ton weight class project in 1945, as the prospective next-generation domestic French tank after the RL-44. The familiar oscillating turret on all AMX50s was introduced in 1949, equipped with a 90mm gun on the AMX-M4. However, at this stage, the French army was no longer content with a 90mm gun, and the AMX-M4 was cancelled to make way for a new turret that housed a 100mm cannon instead. Two prototypes of this new standard was produced, one which was modified from the AMX-M4 and one which was built from the ground up as the AMX-50 TOA100. Unfortunately for the AMX-50 TOA100, the tank's protracted development meant that the army now wanted a 120mm cannon instead of the 100mm, and at this point the hull was grossly under-armored and was lacking in many other technical areas as well. Development of the AMX-50 shifted to what we would now be known as the AMX-50 Surblindé instead. This tank is an AMX M4 and a Lorrain 40T mixed together. To the big gun of the Lorrain and the durable chassis of the M4, this makes it a pretty good tank. A little slower, but still pretty good. This was my part 1 of the 7.3 and 7.7 lineup for France. I'll be finishing the lineup in the next video. If you're interested, subscribe and keep a lookout.